Hey, what's up everybody? It's Randy from the Black Orchid Project. Thanks for stopping by the channel today. It is Mother's Day and you know what that means? Lots of new orchids. So I'm pretty sure that if you've been watching the channel, everybody knows it because you've been telling them and they're like, I'm gonna give her an orchid because she now knows how to take care of it. Or you got that orchid and you was really happy, it's beautiful, they left, and then you looked at it and was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna kill this thing. I killed the last one. You probably didn't kill the last one, but you thought you killed the last one. And so now you're out looking for information on how to take care of it, and you found the right place. So in this video, I am going to talk to you a little bit about a few things that you can do to keep your orchid healthy and happy for years to come. All right, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button. And if you subscribe but you haven't hit the bell button because there will be some follow-up videos to this particular video. I'm not gonna get all the way into it as far as repotting everything. I'm just gonna talk about just what you need to do to keep it happy and healthy right now while it's blooming. So I'm just gonna grab this one here. And as you can see, this is a beautiful orchid. This one doesn't belong to me. I actually just borrowed it from the video. And so I just thought it was gorgeous and great to show, but it's really indicative of what you probably got as a gift. And what I mean by that, it's this is a double spike, really pretty. Leaves are healthy for the most part. There's a few leaves here. It has some decorative moss on it, and it actually has a decorative pot. Now, that's great, but that can be your downfall. In the beginning, I said you probably thought you killed your last plant and you didn't, and a lot of times this is really why. And the flowers fell off and you thought you killed it, but you didn't. So just remember, first things first, this is a plant. It is not a flower, or it is a plant that blooms flowers. So as sad as it is, these will drop and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no keeping the flowers. And so in the past, a lot of people would think that these are supposed to stay, and they would drop the flowers and they would think that they killed the plant. In reality, they actually didn't kill the plant. It goes through a cycle and it will put out more spikes and it will put out more flowers, usually about once a year, depending on where you live. Now, like I said, the first thing you want to do when you get it home is I want you to take out the moss. Now, I don't want you to take it out for good, so you don't have to get rid of it because it is pretty, but I want you to just kind of put your finger in there and see if there's any moisture. If it's dry, I want you to water it. And stick around. I'm going to show you how to water this particular plant in just a bit. The second thing, I want you to look at the bottom and see if there is any moisture, or if there's any drainage holes. You want a drainage hole. Here, you do not want this to be in any kind of container that does not drain. A lot of times when they're in these containers, because I'm going to replant them eventually, I'll take a little knife and make small cuts here. So one, it drains, two, it breathes. Okay? Next, this is very, very important. Look at your decorative pot. Is there a hole at the bottom? Usually there is not. So that is your biggest culprit in your plant going bad or dying or going downhill on you. So what you want to do is first, like I said, see if there's a hole. If there's no hole, then you know this is just a decorative holder for your plant, and you never want to replant it in here, and you never want to just fill this up with water and keep it in here, okay? So that is the first thing. Check the soil. Next, check the pot. Now, as far as this moss, this is fine, it's decorative. You can put it back on there once you know that it's been watered, and that's another way to check it, is to put your finger in there just to check the soil. Now, this particular one is planted in what's called sphagnum moss, and so you're usually gonna find it either in bark or in sphagnum moss. And this moss is in there, and it's a very cheap way for the growers to grow them. And so that's what you're usually going to find it in. And it holds water very well, but it also breathes very well. So it's okay in the medium it's in right this moment. You just want to make sure that it has some moisture to it. Now, that being said, you want to let your plant dry out. You don't want to keep this wet all the time. These are called aerial roots. As you can see, this one has one long aerial root, and actually every root in here is an aerial root is just stuck inside the pot. So the actual root is inside of here. There is a sheath on the outside, this part here, and if I water it real good, it'll turn green, that absorbs water. So in the wild, these will actually live on the side of trees and at the base of trees, and they're usually in tropical areas where it's really moist. They suck water out of the air. This is just a sponge for water. It sucks it out the air and holds it here, and it feeds the root, which runs through the inside of here. So that's why one way you can tell if it's time to water is by looking at your roots. If you look at your roots and they're gray and they're dried, almost like a sponge that's sitting on your counter, when it dries up, it soaks, and you can look and go, oh, that sponge is dry. Same thing with these. When these have enough water, they get plump, and they actually just hold the water to feed the roots. So like I said, you could literally take this out, hang it up, and if you missed it a couple of times a day, it will live fine. It does not need to be inside any type of medium for the most part. Okay, so just know that. So by understanding that, you can better understand that you don't need to keep this thing wet. It's not like other plants that the roots actually dry out, and if they dry out too much, it starts to die. This one will actually hold its own water. So just keep an eye on that. So what I usually do is I will keep an eye on it. I'll walk by and touch it. If it's still moist, definitely don't water it. If I come back in a couple of days and the top is a little crunchy, and it'll get crunchy. If it's a little crunchy, then you know, okay, it's starting to dry out. Let it dry out for a couple of days. That way you know it's dry, you know it's not going to be overwatered, and then go on and water it again. Stick around to the end. I'm going to show you how to water this plant. Now, this is a Phalaenopsis, and this video only applies to Phalaenopsis. There's a lot of different orchids out there. These are the most common, especially that's given for gifts. And so that's why I kind of concentrate on these. They're very easy, and they're just kind of a beginner's one, and I just love them. And so that's why I kind of stick to it, because with some of the other ones, you really have to take a lot of care of them and be very particular about their climate and things like that. The thing about these is most of the time, people kill them because they over care for them. Again, they overwater them, different things like that. So just first and foremost, I want you to not worry, kind of relax, and just know if you watch me, watch other people that you find online, do some reading, your plant is going to be 100% fine. Now, the next thing is you can't always control when these fall. And what I mean by that is, like I said, they're going to fall eventually, so you can't stop it. Sometimes you'll get it home and they will start to fall within a couple of days, okay? Again, that's still not something that you did. Some of them can be very temperamental to climate. So if they came out of a place that was really warm and you put them in an air-conditioned house, that climate change will cause them to kind of go into a little bit of shock. And what they'll do is start to drop their flowers. And so like this one is going to start to drop this flower first, and then this one, and it drops from the bottom to the end because that's the way they bloom. They'll bloom from the bottom to the very end. So if that happens, don't be mad at yourself. Don't be upset. Don't think it's something that you personally did. It could literally just be a climate change. Okay, so there's a chance that can happen. It's not a good chance, but there's a chance. Okay, 2, going from different lighting conditions. So it might have been in a greenhouse with a lot of light at the grower or where it was purchased, at the nursery or wherever. Then you get it home and you put it somewhere a little bit darker. It might have to acclimate to that. Now, that also works in reverse. If it's been in a store or something where it's inside, it's not getting a lot of direct sunlight, and you bring it home and put it in your windowsill, there's a good chance that it might get too much sun. And just that shock of the sun can cause it to start to drop its blooms. So again, don't be upset with that. What we want to watch closely is the leaves and the roots. Leaves and roots are what's going to tell you the most about your plant. If your plant is a nice deep green, really deep green, that means that it's getting enough sun. If it's light green, then it means it's getting too little sun. Sorry, it means it's getting too little sun a lot of times if it's light green. So you can watch your leaves, and they will tell you if it's getting to be too much sun or too little sun. So my suggestion for that is to just put it somewhere in indirect sunlight. South-facing windows are the best. East-facing, you're going to get some morning sun. Obviously, west-facing, here in the States, because I realize I have a lot of people from other countries. Here in the States, we get west sun, and that's going to be the hottest part of the day. So if you just get it away from the window, but close to the window, so it's getting some light, but not direct light, you're probably going to be 100% fine with that. Now, if your light leaves, and this is very important, if your leaves are light green or yellow, and you go, oh my gosh, there's too much, I'm just not getting enough sun, do not put your plant outside. These do not do well outside in conditions that's not controlled. So, you say, I'm gonna put it outside like any other plant so it can get some sun. It will sunburn. They sunburn really, really easy. And once they sunburn, it's hard to recover them or recover the leaves that get sunburned. It's almost impossible. Also, if you're in a cold climate, don't put it outside below probably 48 degrees because, again, the roots and the leaves hold a lot of water and they will freeze, or the water will get so cold way before the freezing point that it will kill off your leaves and they'll get floppy and things like that. So again, just a nice indirect sunlight, especially while it's in bloom, and you'll be fine. Now let's get to the part that you stuck around for, and that is the watering of your plant. That's one of the biggest questions I get is how often do you water your plants and how much do you water your plants? I soak water my plants. And so it depends. I have some very small plants, like some seedlings, and right now in the heat and where they're located, I literally have to soak those things maybe 2 times a week because they're some very, very small plants. Some of my bigger plants, I can soak them and they'll go 2 weeks. And so there's no timeline as to how often you water your plant, but you just want to make sure, again, that you let it dry out a little bit. Letting it dry out is better than keeping it wet all the time, but you just touch it, and you will feel it. Now, we all get the question, can I use ice cubes? Don't use ice cubes. The whole ice cube concept was brought on as a marketing, I'm not gonna say ploy, but it was a marketing technique for a company to help people not overwater them. And they just felt like if they could drop an ice cube on there, they would be fine. Do not put ice cubes on it. I'm gonna show you in just a second how to water, and it's very easy. One reason you don't top water your plants is water will get caught inside the top here. These are so tight, but it will literally get caught in what's called the crown and down in the crown of the leaves. And if it doesn't dry out, if there's good air circulation, it doesn't happen. But you don't want to take that chance. So water will get in there, it'll rot, it'll start to eat away at your leaves and deteriorate your leaves, and it can cause some root damage also. One of the best things about getting these plants in these decorative pots is it's really easy to water. Literally, all you're gonna do is fill this up about halfway or 3/4 of the way and drop your orchid in and let it sit. If it's in the sphagnum moss, 3 minutes, it's gonna soak up all that water. Like I said, it's like spongy. It's gonna soak the water up. You can take it out, drain it, pour the water out, and you are good to go. If it's in the bark, then let it soak for about 15 minutes so that bark gets nice and hydrated. and then it's going to feed your roots for quite a while longer, because it will dry out really fast if it doesn't get hydrated. If you don't have one of these particular cups, then just use a coffee cup, use a pot or a bowl, just something that the water can come up to about right here, and just make sure that it doesn't tip over and break your stems or something like that. So that's why I really like having something just a little bit bigger than the actual the liner pot itself. As far as water, I use tap water. Our tap water is not that bad. It does have chlorine in it. And so sometimes when I'm doing really good about my plants, I will take some water, put it in something, and put it outside, let it dechlorinate for about 2 days, and then use that. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics on how you take care of this plant now that you have it and it's in bloom. Like I said, if you're new here, please subscribe, and also head over to my other channel, which is all orchid content, the Black Orchid Project, and just keep an eye over there, because down the line, I am going to do a repotting video, because once this thing comes out of bloom, there's a good chance it's gonna need to be repotted. So we're gonna do a repotting video. I'm gonna talk about feeding pretty soon. Don't worry about feeding now, but I'm gonna get into some foods and feeding, things like that. So make sure you hit the bell so you'll know when those videos come out. And yeah, just don't worry, don't be nervous. Just please enjoy the beauty of the plant. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments. If you need to send me a picture of your plant, which I would love to see some of your plants and hear some stories, go over to my Instagram channel at Black Orchid Project, BLK Orchid Project, and shoot me a picture through DMs, things like that. So I just love interacting with you guys and talking to you about your plants and seeing your plants. There's some really cool stuff out there. So thanks again for joining me here today on the Black Orchid Project. As always, be safe. More importantly, be kind. And until next time, peace.